Our guest today is Professor Sepideh Yeganegi from the Lazaridis School of Business and Economics on the Waterloo campus. Welcome, Sepideh.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here. And thanks everyone to be here. And I'm very excited for this interview.
Before we begin, I'd like to just ask you to make sure that your microphones are on mute. And if you'd like to ask a question, you can pop it in the chat and I'll try to get to it time permitting. So let's start off, Sepideh. Could you tell us a bit about your background? How did you come to be working at Laurier?
Okay. I think maybe I will start from my bachelor, that far. So my bachelor actually is in science, in microbiology. So, and I worked a couple of years in a lab, but then I realized that that is not maybe things that I want to do for the rest of my life. So I changed job and I started working in a startup that they were doing market research. And there, I think I discovered my interest in management and business. So I decided to go back to university and do my master's at University of Tehran in entrepreneurship and strategy. So I did my master. And after my master, I decided to do my PhD, but I wanted to go abroad to diversify my education. So I went to the UK first, studied English there for a couple of years, and then I came to Canada in 2013. January 2013 was when I entered Canada in Winnipeg. So I did my PhD at the University of Manitoba in strategy and entrepreneurship. It was around 2016, end of 2016, 2017 that I was in job market looking for a job. And at that time, my partner was living in the US. So the plan was I join him there or somewhere that we can be together. But something happened. The travel ban came in. And so then that was putting restrictions on travel to US for 7 countries, including my home country, Iran. So it made it easy for me to make a decision. I said, oh, okay, I'm staying in Canada, which was my preference. And I received a job offer from Wilfrid Laurier University, and I accepted it. I'm very happy that I did that, and I'm very happy here at Lazaridis School of Business, Wilfrid Laurier. It's a great environment for me. I joined the school in July 2017, and I defended my PhD dissertation on March 2018, and became assistant prof from then.
That's very brave of you to take a faculty position before you defended your thesis. There are lots of people that doesn't go so well. So congratulations. I'm glad it worked out. And I'm sorry you had such a personal difficulties from the pandemic. It's been hard for a lot of people. Yeah.
Yes. Well, the life is full of surprises, and we will find the strength to deal with them and continue.
As an aside, I'm just wondering how you found your first winter in Winnipeg, having, I assume, grown up in Iran.
Yeah, actually, before joining the school, I was, and people constantly were telling me, like, do you know where you're going, Manitoba, Winnipeg? Have you checked the weather there? And honestly, when you check the weather, it just like looks colder than it actually is. So when I arrived, it was, I think, January 15, 16 at 1 a.m. Get to the airport, and I was just thinking, okay, it's not that bad, but maybe tonight is like a nice night. And then I remember I asked the taxi driver that, what do you think about this weather? Is it just like a normal winter in Winnipeg? And so yes, it's pretty much, it get as cold as this. And it's good, but I have to say that Manitoba, with that they are famous, friendly Manitoban, that is true. It's like all the good people around me at school, at home, it doesn't make you feel that it's cold. I had a great time at Asper School and in Winnipeg.
Excellent. So, Sepideh, how would you describe your area of scholarship? What are some of the research questions that you're interested in?
Okay, so the main area of my research was spinouts. And what is a spinout? Independent businesses that are created by ex-employees. If I want to give an example, Zoom is a spinout, because the founder of Zoom in 2012, he was working for Cisco WebEx, but he left with 40 of his colleagues to start Zoom. So this is, or other examples, Intel. Intel is a spinout from Fairchild. Fairchild was one of the first companies in Silicon Valley that created so many spinouts, and the children of Intel. It's just like basically there is this theory that spinouts are Valley. So this is the area that I'm working on, but there are 3 disciplines that they are working on the spinouts. Mm-hmm. There are like industrial economics that they are studying spinouts. What they are interested in is basically mainly they are studying spinouts in relation to agglomeration. They see spinouts as a driver of this industrial clusters, because usually when spinouts, they leave their parent firm, they stay close to their parent firms, they perform better than other type of startups because they are building on the knowledge and expertise that they bring from their parent firm. So they are usually more successful than other type of startups. They survive longer, and this will lead to agglomeration and clusters. So this is one area. And usually the research question that this group of scholars are interested in is how spinouts affect agglomeration, which parent firm are creating more spinouts, which spinouts are having a bigger economic impact. So this group of scholars, so seeing spinouts as a positive phenomenon. Mm-hmm. Then there's another group of scholars that they are interested in spinouts, strategic management scholars. What they are interested mainly in relation to the parent firm and parent firm performance. And usually they may see spinouts as plunderers of parents' innovations and knowledge. So they may see spinouts negatively or more negative views. So the research questions that they are interested in is how parent firms, they can reduce spinouts, what affect like the team size of spinouts when employees, they leave in like a larger team, how that affects parent performance. So these are the type of questions that they are interested in. And then another group of scholars are entrepreneurship scholars, that they are interested in spinouts. And basically what they are interested in is how existing organizations shape entrepreneurship, how the work experience that the people they have while they are working for their parent firm affect their performance. So basically here we are more interested on spinout itself and the performance of spinouts, and what are the factors that help them to perform better, how they are created. So these are 3 different disciplines. So where I am here. So I'm in the interface of strategy, entrepreneurship, and probably more tilting toward entrepreneurship. Okay. The research question that I've been working on, or like, which group of employees are more likely to become an entrepreneur? What are the factors at the institutional level that it may affect this employee's decision to become entrepreneurs? For example, in one of our studies, we empirically showed that employees that they are working on the non-core area of the parent firm activities are more likely to leave and become an entrepreneur. Or the factors like venture capital availability in that context. If there is more venture capital available to employees, then those that they are in a core area are more likely to leave and start their own business. Or in another paper, we showed that employees that they are working on both exploration and exploitation activities, which basically we call them ambidextrous, they are more likely to become an entrepreneur compared to employees that they are focusing on either like exploration, which are developing new ideas, innovating, experimenting, those type of activities, versus exploitation, which is like incremental innovation, refinement, and basically exploiting the existing competencies of the firm, and instead of coming up with the new ideas. So the employees that they were ambidextrous, they were involved in both type of activities, were more likely to become entrepreneurs. These are something that maybe it fit more in that entrepreneurship stream. But then if I want to see like how my research is kind of like relevant to the parent firms. So the parent firms, usually the tools that they have to use to reduce spinouts are, for example, non-competes.
I was going to ask you about whether they did that, because that seems like an obvious strategy. Maybe not the best one, but it sounds like one.
Yes, it is, and there is lots of research on that it shows that restrictive covenants in general and non-competes, it reduce employee mobility, and it will reduce the spinouts. So one of the tools that they have is this kind of agreement in employment contracts. So in one of our ongoing projects, we are focusing actually in Canadian context, and we studied around 300 cases that they went to court, like employer, they took their ex-employees for violating their this restrictive covenants, agreements, and the goal was, okay, which group of employees when they leave are more vulnerable to this enforcement? And what we find is higher rank employees that they start their own business, they are more in danger of like enforcement compared to like lower level employees. And I think these are important results, because usually this non-competes, they are creating like this chilling effects that employees, they may believe that they are more enforceable than they really are. So it's important that employees, they understand that because they signed those non-competes, if their employers, they took them to the court, and it doesn't mean necessarily it will kind of like successfully be enforced against them. But if you are in a higher level and then you have access more to the parent firm knowledge, then it puts you in a kind of vulnerable position. And at the same time for the parent firm too. So all this litigation is costly, time consuming, lots of resources of the parent firms goes to all this litigations and legal procedures. But I think the result, it shows that, okay, the parent firm, they should just choose their battle. If there are spinouts that were created by the lower level employees that they signed the non-competes, but now they started their own business, maybe it's not the best idea to go after all the employees that they leave, because first of all, it's just wasting your resources. Second, the research shows that spinouts actually, they can have a positive effect on parent performance when other stakeholders, they see the parent firm as an incubator. When people, they go work for an organization and they leave and they have successful spinouts, this is helping parent firm, because now they have this reputation of like a good learning environment, good working environment, that they can just go there and then later have their own successful spinouts. But going after all these employees that they leave and go to all this litigation, it may kind of like damage that reputation and kind of like prevent parent firm for prevent them to attract the future stakeholders, including the lots of potential employees that they have passion for entrepreneurship. They are very talented, they are very high performing, but they may choose not to work for an organization who was hostile toward their spinouts.
Right.
So these are the overall things that I'm doing in that area.
Excellent. I might have some questions to come back to, but I just segue to a nice little segue here is what motivates or inspires those research interests?
Yeah, very good question. So when I was doing my master, for a research project, I interviewed several women entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm.
And what I realized, it's most of them, they started their business later, after gaining some work experience. And so this was kind of like a contrary to this perception that like we hear in like students, they drop off school and start their own business, or entrepreneurs are born that way. So it was very interesting to me to see this employee entrepreneurship is a real thing. Like all these entrepreneurs that I'm interviewing them, they all first work for another organization. And actually later when I was doing more research, I realized actually 70% of entrepreneurs, they go to the market by an idea that was developed while they were working for another company. So this was one aspect that I see employee entrepreneurship, and specifically spinouts are a phenomenon that I'm interested in. And the other thing is I see this transition from employment to entrepreneurship. It helped this woman not only empower them and themselves and their families, but it's also kind of like it was very good for their community and society around them. So I see spinout as a positive phenomenon. But as I mentioned, it's not always the case. There's always this tension that in one hand, so we see spinouts as a source of economic growth and bringing all this jobs and distribution of wealth in the society. But at the same time, from parent perspective, you look at it, so parent firms, they are affected negatively by best employees. Usually these are high performing employees that they leave to start their own business, and especially when they are creating competing firms. So there's this tension. Okay, which stakeholders are matter more? The entrepreneur, and then we have the society and the community, and we have the parent firm. So I see spinouts as a way that they are helping with the knowledge spillover in a society, in an industry, because even the largest firm, when you think about it, they have limited resources. There is not possible for parent firms to exploit all the new ideas that they come up with. So if it's not because of this brave employees that they leave and take those unexploited ideas out, so we wouldn't see like we couldn't see like lots of these new products and services that are offered, and all this entrepreneurship. I feel a way of distributing wealth and is a career path that it should be accessible to everyone. So for all this reason, I see spinouts as a very interesting topic to do research. So this is a research question, so that it was motivate me. So while I was doing my master and all this, it just I came up with this kind of like research question. So I want to know who are these employees and what are the enablers, or what are the factors that enable them or constrain them to become an entrepreneur. But then I need a data set to test those. So one thing that I did during my master, it helped me actually. So when I was during my master and sometimes after that, I was working for Global Entrepreneurship Monitor Office in Iran. Global Monitor, GEM, or Global Entrepreneurship Monitor, is an international consortium that they every year they do a worldwide survey in over, I think now 70, 80 countries, and they measure entrepreneurial activities across the world, I think since 1998. I had a chance to work for GEM Iran office and help to collect data in 2008 and again in 2012. So I was involved in kind of like designing the method of collecting data, because the questionnaire is same for all countries, but the way that each country collect data is different. Some countries, they may outsource it to a research company that they will just collect the data and give it to the team. But That was not the case for us. There was no such kind of like firms that will go and collect the data for us. So we had to do it ourselves. And I was involved in collecting data from like scratch. So I knew the GEM data very well. So when I joined the PhD program, I had a research question, and I knew this data set, especially in 2011, the special topic of GEM, it was employee entrepreneurship. So it was a perfect kind of like a data set to test hypotheses that I had. And with the help of my advisor and my collaborators, we started working on that project. And to this day, we're still working on that area.
Nice. I like when people continue to work with their former supervisors. I think it speaks well for the relationship. So you might have sort of answered this question already, but I'll give you a chance to elaborate if you want. As you transition from being a PhD student to being a faculty member, and you're, sort of looking forward to having your entire career out in front of you now, is there one kind of like umbrella question that all of your smaller pieces of research fit under, is like one larger question that you're trying to answer? Or maybe not, like not everybody has that kind of thing.
Yes, I think, well, I'm working on spinouts, and a newer project that I'm working is on crowdfunding and how the diversity of startup teams affect the team performance. So if I want to make like one big questions, maybe I can say like, how do we make entrepreneurship accessible as a career path to people around the world? More specifically, how do factors at individual and institutional levels interact to enable or constrain those kind of like entrepreneurial behaviors? And maybe I'm interested to kind of like know what can be done to remove those barriers and boost those enablers. I think I'm just thinking about like each research project. I think it has some kind of contribution to this very general research question.
Excellent. Okay, thanks. So we've talked a bit about your research area. We've talked about what motivates you and the kinds of questions you're trying to answer. Now I want to just switch gears a little and talk about how you do your research. So is your discipline, is it a collaborative discipline? Do you collaborate with other researchers, or do you mostly work by yourself? If you work with others, who are your closest colleagues right now?
Yeah, very good question. Actually, I don't have any solo author paper yet. So that means all my papers are, I have collaborators for all my papers. Different one. I have collaborators at Asper School of Business, University of Manitoba. That's the place that I started. So there were colleagues that actually I learned a lot from them in terms of the research method and the way I'm running my analysis and the method. So and I have colleagues here in Ontario at Ted Rogers School of Management. I have collaborators from University of Minnesota in US. And I have collaborators in my like crowdfunding projects. I'm working with one of my colleagues here at Laurier. So I think, yes, I'm looking at from like a very pragmatic perspective. So each of us bringing something to the table. Sometimes I'm collaborating with a collaborator because they have access to a specific data set that I need for our analysis. For example, for that diversity project, a collaborator from the Ted Rogers School of Management, they had access to a specific data set that was helping us to study this important question. Or sometimes they are knowledgeable about specific theory or method. So I think.
Let me ask you this
question. With all of them.
You've described a number of times today where you've accessed particular data sets to help you address questions. I'm curious about whether is that is that your usual way of working? Is you find a data set that addresses the question that you're interested in, or do you sometimes collect the data that goes into the data set yourself?
Yes, very good question. Yes, a combination of both.
Okay.
For example, for that paper that we the two papers that I published is all secondary data. So I had the research question, and I knew that I want to study employee entrepreneurship, and I knew that there is a data set there and then I need some information at the country level, like how is the venture capital availability at the institutional level in each of these countries. So then there is a World Economic Forum out there that they collect this data every year. So, but the fact that, so I know about all these data sets, I know how to combine them, I know how to run the multi-level analysis, so it's good. But then there is sometimes there's no data. For example, non-compete research, if you look at it, most of the non-compete studies are done in US, because US, each state, they have their own non-compete regulations and rules and laws. So, and then a researcher came and kind of rank each state based on the enforceability of the non-competes in each state. So all the studies that we see, it's about non-compete in US. But we were interested to see, okay, what about other countries? How non-compete enforceability in other countries interact with other factors to influence the employee's decision to become an entrepreneur or not. So what we did, we almost spent 2 years to collect data, to develop an index that it measured the enforceability of non-competes in 59 countries. That was a very time consuming. It's very, and sometimes, and there are some countries that we did not find any information, like we couldn't find anything about, including my own home country, like Iran, we couldn't find any information. There was a few other countries that we exclude them from our study. Are
non-compete clauses enforceable across international boundaries? Like if you signed a contract that has a non-compete agreement in the US, and then you go and start working for a company in the UK or something, is that enforceable?
So I don't want to have give a kind of like a legal advice or something.
Oh, I get it. Yeah. I'm not sure it varies by jurisdiction, but
yes, and that is why even in the US, people, they may choose and start their business in a state that non-compete is not forcible.
I gotcha.
And so some people, they argue that the reason that Silicon Valley was successful in this cluster shape is because non-compete is not forcible. So employees, they could just leave their parent firm and start their own business.
I see. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, and because usually, and even if it's forcible, there is very kind of like a different variety of the scope, the geography, the time, how long after you leave your business you can't start a business that is competing, how far you have to go, is just 1 kilometer or the whole city or whole province. So these are all kind of like a criteria that will affect the enforceability of non-competes. And that was the thing, when we developed that dimension, the index for enforceability, we realized there are 9 dimensions that are important, that we kind of compare different countries on each dimension. And so this is something that we did, collecting data ourselves, to kind of run study across the countries, and instead of just focusing on one country like US. Yeah. Or this non-compete in Canadian context, this data that we collected, going through all this, there was more, but then I think after that we were able to kind of find the cases that were usable and there was enough information about them. There was around 300. So that was another project that we spent lots of time to go through all these legal documents and see what was at the end the decision, what was the issue, and kind of run a study on those data sets.
Well, Sepideh, I feel like we could go on all day. There's lots more to talk about here, but unfortunately, we've actually come to the end of our time for this week.
Okay.
I would ask the audience to please, join me virtually in thanking our guest. Sepideh, thank you so much for sharing your very evident scholarly passions with us today.